Exposed: how a janitor's hidden invention transformed one company and shocked the board forever. Dave had been a janitor for 15 years, his once-cherished dreams of becoming a scientist buried beneath the weight of scrubbing floors and emptying trash. Yet beneath the guise of fresh floors and disinfected surfaces, he brewed more than just cleaning solutions. He poured his heartbreak and hope into a revolutionary idea that danced at the edges of his mind. Every stroke of the mop was laced with ambition, a fantasy of catching the world's attention and proving that even janitors could shift the course of innovation. But could he really bare his heart and soul in front of the very people who had overlooked him for so long? The glistening offices of the elite tech company buzzed without him in the daytime, the executives gliding past like sleek machines, oblivious to the man on his knees, nursing the floors. Dave's hands trembled, not just from the exertion but from the anxiety that loomed like storm clouds in his mind. How would his fellow workers perceive him if he stood up and spoke out? He could already hear their whispers, the "just a janitor" echoes stone cold in his mind, the reality that clawed at him as he wiped away stains with vigor. He suppressed his doubts, mumbling words of encouragement as he polished glass ceilings, but panic churned within him. Could he risk everything he had created, a cleaner that could redefine how they thought of sanitation? He squeezed the rag, imagining the shimmer of possibilities slipping through his fingers like grains of sand. The company buzzed with excitement for their product launch just hours away, but here he was, contemplating the consequences of a misplaced ambition. Would they even take him seriously? The fear of humiliation gnawed at him. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. And then, disaster struck. A frantic scramble, the loud clatter of a chair tumbling over a discarded cleaning bottle, sending a caustic liquid spewing across the prototype. His heart raced faster than a drowning man breaking the surface. This was the mistake that might send him back to the struggle of living paycheck to paycheck. The executives erupted into chaos, their faces pale, with disbelief twisting their features. In that instant, standing off to the side with his solution bagged and ready, Dave felt the pressure build. What if he stepped forward? The thought fired an intense urgency through his veins, but with it came an avalanche of self-doubt. Who would listen to him? The janitor whisper echoed through his mind, drowning him in anxiety. The moment felt like impending doom, but could it be another shot at redemption, the rise of the underestimated? He clenched his solution tightly, fighting against the shame that threatened to strip him of his identity. Would he finally be seen for who he was or merely fade into invisibility? He drew a breath, preparing to step into the unforgiving spotlight of skepticism. A world of judgment stared him down, but perhaps, just perhaps, in this whirlwind of panic, he could turn this stumble into something greater. The clock was ticking, decisions had to be made, and Dave stood at the intersection of hope and despair, praying he would step into the light before darkness threatened to engulf him completely. All he could do was confront the doubts that clawed at the edges of his mind. The room held its breath, waiting as he teetered on the edge of revelation. What he would unleash next could change everything, but only if he was brave enough to take that leap. Dave's heart thundered in his chest as he stood frozen, his mind racing with scenarios that could unfold in seconds. Would he be ridiculed, dismissed, or worse, ignored entirely? Yet, in the swirl of indecision, a kernel of his long-ignored ambition sparked into life. This was not merely about a product, it was about seizing the chance to redefine his identity. He stepped forward, each step feeling like a leap into the unknown. The executives were still murmuring amongst themselves, concern etched deeply into their faces. He had to carve out a space amidst the chaos. The mop and the bucket he had wielded for years had transformed into symbols of his resolve, symbols of the potential he carried within him. "Excuse me." His voice sliced through the tension, startling everyone. Their eyes centered on him, disbelief and curiosity mingling in the air. The varied shades of shock painted his colleagues' faces, but he felt a resolve swell within him. This was his moment, the time had come to lay down his fears. I know it may seem strange to listen to a janitor on a day like this, but I believe I can help. He felt the heat of their scrutiny but pushed through. That spill, it could ruin the prototype, but I have something that could fix this. What are you proposing? One executive snapped, skepticism drenching his tone. Just let me show you, Dave replied, striving to sound more confident than he felt. He unzipped the bag he had clung to fiercely, revealing the carefully crafted cleaner, the very fruit of sleepless nights spent designating oil and water, surfactants and scents. A wave of unease washed over him as he glanced again at the executives. Could they ever see past his uniform? Let us be honest, he continued, grasping for clarity in frazzled thoughts. This solution is not only effective. It's made from entirely organic materials. It's sustainable. And it'll cut through not just dirt, but some of the underlying issues with the current prototype. The words flowed as adrenaline propelled him, his voice gaining strength with each phrase. He demonstrated as he spoke, dabbing his cloth in the cleaner and rubbing away the remnants of the spill. The eyes of the room widened, some leaning in closer, desperation evident amid their earlier dismissal. Seconds felt like hours as he wiped away the evidence of disaster, leaving behind surfaces shimmering with potential and promise. That glimmering surface suddenly mirrored Dave not just as a janitor, but as an innovator, a fierce contender who fought to reclaim his identity. There, he said, stepping back, breathing heavily but relieved. The cleaner sparkled and glowed under the bright office lights, feeling more profound than any surface treatment. It was not merely cleaner, it was his reformation. The executives exchanged glances, a mix of astonishment and begrudging respect passing through the room. He observed a shift, a collective inhalation, as they absorbed what he had laid bare. A janitor had discovered an answer when they were at their most vulnerable. The trickle of confidence coursed through him, warming his core. This was no longer simply about sanitation, this was about challenging perceptions, revealing potential buried beneath labels, and understanding that rank meant little when innovation called out in clarity. But even as the first flickers of acknowledgement surfaced in their eyes, shadows of doubt still lurked within him. Had he truly broken free from being just a janitor? Had he fought hard enough for the personal and professional redemption that had eluded him for years? Just then, the head of the board approached him, his expression hardening with newfound determination. Let us talk more about this innovation, Dave. But know this: putting yourself out there is just the beginning. The real challenge comes next. A surge of anxiety rippled through him as he processed the implications. What would the next chapter of this journey hold? And on the other side of that unknown lay not just opportunity, but the potential for failure, the kind of fear that lurked like a predator, waiting for the next misstep. As the board members gathered around him, discussing logistics and potential, a question loomed: would he rise to the occasion, becoming the architect of his destiny, or would he fumble under the weight of newfound expectations? His heart raced anew, ready for whatever awaited him in this fragile moment of hope and uncertainty. Dave stood amidst the swirling energy of the room, the gravity of the moment anchoring him in place. The board's initial shock slowly morphed into a whirlwind of strategizing and debating. A pulse of adrenaline coursed through him, igniting a flicker of something new, possibility. He had entered this clinical space as the janitor, but now, in the eyes of his colleagues, he was becoming something much more complex. The executives peppered him with questions, their tone shifting from skepticism to genuine curiosity. How scalable is this solution? One asked, the hint of excitement in her voice marking a significant change. Can you replicate this for other projects? Another pressed, attention focused entirely on Dave. He was on the cusp of a breakthrough, yet amidst the rising anticipation, his heart thudded with uncertainty. Could he maintain this momentum? Could he transform this momentary recognition into something lasting? Absolutely, he responded, striving to sound unfazed, though his mind raced to formulate answers and plans. This cleaner is designed with versatility in mind. Scaling production is feasible with access to the right materials and resources. Each word felt like an acorn sown in fertile soil. The executives were leaning into his vision, nodding as if they could see the nascent future he painted with his words. Yet, a darker impulse whispered in the recesses of his mind. Was this an illusion? The weight of his past threatened to pull him back into a familiar darkness. The meeting subsumed the rest of the day, with data thrown back and forth, discussions weaving intricate webs of logistics and marketing strategies. Various executives circled Dave like hawks, hunting for the slightest misstep. He couldn't afford to falter, every response needed to be sharp, each statement suffused with insight. As the sun dipped below the skyline, he could feel a shift within himself. Every question thrown his way urged him to dig deeper, to reveal layers of knowledge he had long buried under years of toil. The janitorial work he had devoted his life to was just one facet. Years ago, he had been eager, even passionate, about chemistry and sustainable practices. That passion blazed under the surface, demanding to be set free. "Let us identify target markets for the cleaner," he suggested during a brief lull in the conversation, pulling pieces together with newfound clarity. Industries focused on sustainability like hospitality and personal care could benefit tremendously. We can revolutionize their approach to cleaning. The words spilled out before him, confident and stark. The executives exchanged excited glances, their buzz charging the air. "That's an interesting point," the head of the board said, his eyebrows raised. "Can you develop a prototype for feedback?" Dave nodded, feeling a sense of affirmation wash over him. A prototype. It wasn't just about cleansing materials anymore, it was about creating impact, touching lives through innovations born from his own hands. He envisioned the feedback real users experiencing the product firsthand. A glimmer of confidence punctured the anxiety that once threatened to bow him down. But just as the prospect seemed within reach, a profound realization struck him. The journey wasn't solely about this cleaner, it was about him embracing an evolving identity. No longer could he shy from challenges or cling to the safety net of his old role. The meeting wrapped up, and as the executives began to disperse, Dave lingered in his place. He revisited the hope bubbling inside him, juxtaposing it with the shadows lurking from his past. Would he truly step away from the janitor's persona and claim this new identity? The cut-off point of expectation gnawed at him. The path forward was uncharted yet brimming with promise. He had taken the initial leap, but what lay ahead would demand everything he had. As he packed his belongings, he felt the tension peak once more. Opportunity and personal growth swirled like a tempest in his mind. What he hadn't anticipated was the confrontation looming around the corner, a colleague who had always doubted him, someone hoping to undermine his newfound status. Dave could sense a challenge brewing. Would he stand firm and prove his mettle, or would old insecurities beckon him back into their grasp? With uncertainty lingering like a fog, he walked out into the twilight, clear on one thing: the moment of truth awaited him just ahead. As Dave stepped into the crisp evening air, he fought against the rush of anxiety tightening in his chest. The challenges ahead felt towering, especially with the face of doubt. He could almost envision the colleague who had turned skepticism into an art form. A man whose laughter still echoed through Dave's mind each time he had swept through the corporate halls, dismissed as a mere janitor, a ghost in the operations of others. Dave could almost feel the haze of his past clinging to him, the resentment it had cultivated fueling uncertainty. Each night spent picking up others' messes echoed back, gnawing at the progress he had made today. The thrill of proposing a new prototype for the cleaner lifted him, yet now it felt precarious, a tightrope walk over a pit of self-doubt. He retraced his steps home, his mind spiraling through possibilities. What if his colleague, Jeremy, decided to challenge his credibility? What if the board, instead of supporting him, rallied behind the man who had found humor in Dave's struggles? No matter how much he tried to fight it, memories of ridicule surged with every step, suffusing his thoughts with petrifying alarm. Back in the solitude of his small apartment, the fluorescent lights flickering above provided little comfort. His reflection in the window showed more than the janitor he had always been. It showed a man poised on the brink of change, yet teetering on the edge. He dropped his bag on a chair and sat down, fingers gripping the edges of his desk. Deep breaths steadied him as he began to analyze the emotions swirling like a storm. Why was he so terrified? Each question echoed in the silence, sharpening his focus. Was this newfound attention volatile or transformative? It forced him to confront the truth. He wanted this opportunity, craved validation not just from others but from himself. The weight of his old identity fought back like a stubborn shadow, refusing to fade. Clenching his fists, he considered that prototype. It had the potential to be more than just a product. It was a manifestation of his repressed ambition, a beacon illuminating a path forward. With this line of thinking, he pushed away thoughts of Jeremy's mocking voice, shaping instead a determined plan. If he could compress the essence of his experience into this cleaner, it would signify so much more than mere utility. It would speak of resilience, creativity, and resolve. And yet, lurking deeper in his reflection was the lingering question: how would he respond when the confrontation with Jeremy came? It was inevitable, and he sensed the stakes were rising. To grow into this new role, he would need to confront the person seeking to belittle him. His thoughts drifted as he imagined their exchange, scenarios rolling out that ranged from dismissive comments to outright meddling in his work. Would he simply let the blows land? Would he stand silent in the face of disparagement, or would he engage and prove his worth? He needed to gather not just the data and science surrounding the cleaner but also the courage required to defend his ideas and position. Tomorrow, he would face the board again, but first, he had to prepare for the front lines, an unfiltered voice cutting through the darkness. His resolve hardened as night deepened, promising him invaluable clarity and a raw desire to fulfill his potential. There lay the opportunity not just to elevate a product, but to redefine himself. Conscious of the time, he pulled out a notepad, jotting down ideas for the prototype, potential market strategies, and a few key points aimed to counter any arguments Jeremy might conjure. Focus began to crystallize. However, all progress is often met with resistance. Just as he was piecing together plans, his phone buzzed. An unsolicited message from Jeremy appeared, more insidious than expected, questioning Dave's professional capabilities and hinting at potential setbacks. A smirk curled on Dave's lips, a surge of adrenaline kicking him into gear. The confrontation was not merely an occurrence but a crucible in which he would emerge transformed. Yet the question lingered, igniting a fierce determination within him: was he ready for the battle ahead, ready to harness the invention he had crafted and the person he longed to be? As he stared at the screen, fingers hovering, Dave felt the weight shift. The stakes were no longer just about a prototype but about his identity. The battle for respect was about to commence, and he would not back down. His heart pounded with electric anticipation. Tomorrow would bring the fierce reckoning he had secretly anticipated, a face-off with Jeremy that would cement his resolve or tear him apart. One way or another, he would not allow doubt to define him any longer. Night ebbed slowly, the city casting shadows that felt like reminders of the darkness Dave sought to escape. As he sat at his desk, the flickering fluorescent light painted his determined features in ghostly hues. He pondered deeply on his prototype, envisioning it not just as a product of innovation, but as a testament to his journey. Tomorrow, those ideas would be laid bare before the board, a room filled with the sharpest minds, people whose opinions had the power to elevate or obliterate him. Fingers tapping rhythmically against the desk, he explored every conceivable angle of his arguments. Each point he prepared sharpened his resolve. As much as he yearned for validation, he recognized that he also sought to assert his space in a world where he had always been shoved to the margins. He wanted to walk in with the identity of a creator rather than that of a cleaner, the janitorial title feeling more like a shackle with each passing moment. In the back of his mind, Jeremy's taunts lingered like a malevolent specter. Yet, instead of drawing in fear, they ignited a fierce flame within him. This time, he would not wilt before ridicule, he would rise. Every mocking laugh he remembered became fuel, transforming sour memories into a reservoir of tenacity. Wasn't it time to reclaim his narrative, to push beyond the roles assigned to him and pen his own? Sleep eluded him, each tick of the clock a reminder of the impending confrontation. How many times had he rolled over in bed after a long day, exhausted from cleaning up others' messes, both literal and figurative? The weight of his past pressed against him, yet within that burden lay the insight that propelled him forward. He was more than a janitor, he was an innovator with the potential to reshape this company's very fabric. As dawn broke, casting a pale light across his apartment, that realization solidified into purpose. He dressed meticulously, a symbol of the respect he was poised to demand. Each article of clothing was chosen deliberately to present a new identity, a highlight of professionalism blending with intention. The janitor they once dismissed would walk in as Dave, the inventor, the visionary. During the short drive to the office, his mind raced with scenarios, each a reenactment of the battles he anticipated. Would Jeremy attempt to undermine him? Would the board choose to humor the jester who basked in cynicism, or would they finally recognize the depth of Dave's insights? Upon arrival, the corridors buzzed with activity, yet it felt like each murmur was steeped in his narrative. He could sense whispers, passing glances, the intrigue of a previously unseen potential electrifying the air. A few colleagues nodded, expressions shifting from indifference to curiosity as if they could feel the shift in his energy. Finally, he entered the conference room, the board seated and expectant. Heart pounding, he greeted them with a smile that masked the storm within. As he began his presentation, meticulously outlining the advantages of his cleaner, he found himself deep in flow, the words flowing as his confidence burgeoned. Every fact, every statistic lined up perfectly with his vision. He took the moment to pause, letting the silence sink before painting a portrait of his invention's future, the immense savings, the sustainable practices, the lives transformed through his innovation. With each word, the anxiety that once knotted his stomach slowly unraveled, replaced by the thrill of claiming his place. Yet just as he felt the exhilarating rush wash over him, Jeremy intervened. Leaning back slightly in his chair, he grinned in that way that had always unsettled Dave. "Interesting ideas, Dave," he remarked, a glint of challenge in his eyes. "But how does a janitor expect the board to take you seriously? What makes you think your concept rivals the extensive experience of our established teams?" The room shifted, tension tightened like a noose. In that instant, time froze, and the echo of Jeremy's mockery thundered in Dave's mind. Would the old Dave crumble? Or would this confrontation mark the moment he finally broke free? Dave felt the energy thrum through his veins, and he opened his mouth to respond, fully aware that this was the moment of truth. The stakes couldn't be higher. Would he falter under pressure, spurred on by years of belittlement, or would he transform this trial into a testament of his worth? Would he retreat into silence or charge forward and define himself as an innovator? The answer lay on the tip of his tongue, a revelation waiting to unfold. In that heavy silence, Dave felt the weight of the room on his shoulders, his heart raced in sync with his pulse, a symphony of dread and determination. He inhaled slowly, the silence urging him to respond. Inspiration surged through him, a wave of clarity amidst the chaos. "I understand your skepticism, Jeremy," he began, steadying his voice against the accusing barbs. "But my title does not define my capabilities. It's a mere label, one that tries to encapsulate who I am. This prototype isn't just an idea, I've poured years of experience into its development. I've seen firsthand what works and what doesn't, cleaning up after others. And I understand cleanliness from a perspective the board might overlook." He glanced around the table, their faces a kaleidoscope of expressions, surprised, intrigued, and one or two still skeptical. This was his chance to escape the confines of judgment. "They say necessity is the mother of invention," Dave continued, gaining momentum. "I created this cleaner not just for efficiency but to inspire a shift in our industry. It's about more than just a product, it's about redefining how we approach our work, streamlining operations while being environmentally conscious." This is a snowball effect that can lead to profound change. As he spoke, he saw the board's eyes narrow, contemplating. Was he winning them over, or simply prolonging the inevitable? Jeremy shifted in his chair, eyebrow raised, clearly waiting for a chance to pounce again. Do you really think a janitor can envision the future of this company? How can you expect a team full of seasoned professionals to take your insight seriously? Jeremy's voice dripped with skepticism, yet it only fed Dave's resolve. You're underestimating the power of perspective, Dave countered, gesturing passionately. Innovation thrives at the edges. My experience may come from mopping floors, but it's that very position that offers a unique vantage point on operational inefficiencies. I see gaps that others may overlook. For the first time, the board members leaned in slightly, their attention peaked. He could sense a shift, a crack in their armor of skepticism. The challenge wasn't just about answering Jeremy, it was the audacity to redefine the narrative surrounding him. Let us consider where we stand right now, Dave pressed on, heart racing but voice steady. We want to lead the market, but we need to understand the customer's needs at every level, and I've done just that. My approach integrates sustainability, cost-effectiveness, and user accessibility. I see the larger picture because I've lived the minutiae. He took a breath, feeling the electric energy in the room as they contemplated his words. It wasn't simply a question of his invention's functionality, it was about agency. A janitor had dared to stand up, confront his oppressor, and deliver a vision that intertwined with fresh insights. Dave's conviction swelled within him as he recalled the late nights battling self-doubt. It crystallized into clarity. This moment was not just his, it was a message to anyone who had been underestimated. As Jeremy opened his mouth to retort, Dave seized the opportunity to expand on the prototype's potential impact through additional features he had yet to unveil, structural enhancements that could integrate with the existing systems, ensuring seamless adaptation. The board leaned forward, captivated by the dimension of his passion, but just then, the door creaked open, and an unexpected figure stepped into the room. Maya, the company's CEO, her expression inscrutable. Silence swallowed the room as she called out, I hear there's an exciting discussion happening. Mind if I join? Dave's heart plummeted and soared in equal measure. This could change everything. Her presence felt like both a lifeline and a dagger. What could she possibly think of him, standing before an audience where Jeremy thrived on doubt? The stakes amplified as he faced not just the board, but the chance to win over the very leader of the company. Suddenly, a whirlwind of uncertainties spun in his mind. Would this turn of events propel him forward or lay bare his vulnerabilities just when he claimed his voice? And as he locked eyes with Maya, realization dawned. Transformation began with the courage to confront his own fears. Would he rise to this challenge and solidify his place, or would the tides of doubt control his destiny? The moment had arrived, a confrontation deeper than he'd anticipated. Maya's entry shifted the room's atmosphere, a veritable pivot point. Dave's heart raced, caught in the wild pendulum swing of anticipation and anxiety. The way she stood, unwavering yet relaxed, radiated authority. For a brief moment, he lost his own certainty. The purpose behind his words clashed with the unspoken fear of judgment from the highest echelon of the company. Please, continue, she urged, her calm presence diffusing the tension, yet also amplifying it. Jeremy shot a glance at Maya, his skepticism warping into curiosity. Dave executed a mental recalibration, shifting his focus back onto the assembly before him, now partially filled with the woman who symbolized everything he aspired to be in this company, a transformative leader. The cleaner I've developed leverages cutting-edge, eco-friendly technology that remarkably reduces costs while enhancing user experience, Dave stated, feeling the weight of each word. He was no longer simply an underdog, he was a capable innovator deserving of this moment. But it's imperative to look at this as more than just a product. It's an opportunity, an invitation to revolutionize our approach to cleaning solutions on a global scale. The board exchanged glances, and he took note of the rapid-fire exchange of expression. Their culture of skepticism was clearly crumbling, but could he capture their full attention and allegiance before it reset? Jeremy attempted to interject. Dave, being idealistic is one thing, but do you really think this will appease the bigger players in our market? Emotional appeals don't translate to numbers. Dave could feel the tension tightening again, but he was no longer drowning in doubt. This was a crossroads. It was time to assert the calculations behind his passion. Let us look at the data, Jeremy. Our competitors have been slow to embrace sustainable practices. By implementing this cleaning solution, we won't just gain market share, we will redefine it. With each assertion, his voice grew firmer, more resolute. He noticed Maya leaning in, her interest visibly piqued. Could this be the moment where everything he worked for converged? His heartbeat synced to the drumroll of decisive thought, as he pressed on. When was the last time our company truly led an innovation rather than merely responded to trends? We can position ourselves not just as another product in consumers' choices but as a leader and ally who considers their values, not just their needs. This prototype promises to engage with shifts in consumer awareness and expectation. The impact of his passion began to churn feelings around the table, from skepticism to intrigue, as murmurs arose within the board. Dave's pulse quickened. Every beat echoed with the understanding that choices made now could redefine not just his career, but its trajectory entirely. Suddenly, he glanced at Maya again, noting the thoughtful contemplation reflected in her expression. There was something primal about her energy, an unspoken alignment with his vision. But, could they count on her support? Would she prioritize personal connection over industry credibility? Imagine what this innovation can achieve, Dave continued, daring to push further now. Reducing our environmental footprint could lead to new partnerships, and it sends a resounding message to our clients about where we stand on sustainability. The future is about more than profits, it's about purpose. The room hung on to his every word, and just as he sensed his momentum, the tension shifted again. Jeremy's demeanor cracked, unable to maintain his adamant posture toward Dave's approach, yet he remained components of a long-standing rivalry. Maya paused, considerately evaluating both men as if weighing the fate of the company. The moment extended infinitely, steeped in anticipation. Dave, she began, finally breaking the silence. You've shown remarkable insight, but how do you plan to execute this vision? How do you plan to combat the inertia we face from within our established network? Her query cut through the haze of escalation, a solemn invitation to deepen the conversation. Something ignited in Dave. This was not merely an inquiry, it was a challenge, and the real test of his capabilities loomed ahead. His throat grew dry, but a different pulse surged: determination, not fear. How would he respond to this pivotal question? The next moment crystallized before him. It wasn't just a matter of ideas anymore. It was time to translate his vision into concrete steps. And in that instant, he knew he had the opportunity to prove himself not just as a janitor tapping into a brilliant invention but as a leader who could inspire trust through execution. Would he seize the moment and outline his path forward, or risk losing everything he had fought to build? As the silence deepened, his mind raced ahead, strategizing a response that could cement his place in the future of the company, and perhaps even reshape his identity. Dave took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the room's expectations pressing against him. His mind swirled with possibilities, each potential answer flickering like a neon sign. He had to crystallize his thoughts into a coherent plan that not only articulated his vision but also showcased his capability as a leader. I appreciate your question, Maya, he finally said, channeling his resolve into words. To combat the inertia, our first step will involve a pilot program. I propose we partner with a few selected clients who prioritize sustainability. They are the early adopters and influencers who can amplify our message. Together, we'll refine the product based on their feedback, ensuring we meet not just market demands but also the ethical expectations of our times. He scanned the board members, gauging their reactions as he shared this targeted approach. Some looked intrigued, others remained unconvinced. Jeremy's furrowed brow revealed the skepticism still lingering beneath his surface. Of course, Dave continued, we'll need a solid marketing strategy to accompany the pilot program. While we cultivate these relationships, we can also launch a campaign illuminating the potential benefits of our eco-friendly cleaning solution, not just for cost savings but for how it aligns with consumer values. Each word he spoke felt like a stone outlining a path. It was methodical, grounded in practicalities that contrasted with their previous reliance on emotionality. Yet, fear still loomed like a whisper in the back of his mind. Would they see the merit, or would the shadows of doubt push his ideas further into obscurity? If we can build credibility with our early adopters, we can leverage their testimonials to expand our reach, he added. Picture this, a case study highlighting metrics that show increased efficiency and client satisfaction. That kind of evidence speaks louder than any rhetoric. We will be showing a clear path from aspiration to execution. As he concluded, he felt an overwhelming tide of adrenaline rush through him. He was not merely fighting for his idea. He was standing at the forefront of a movement, a pivot that could realign the company's direction. A voice deep within him resonated, pushing him to believe he belonged here, at this moment, with powerful thoughts capable of forging change. Maya nodded, her demeanor reflecting a shrewd calculation. You seem to have mapped out a feasible trajectory, Dave. But tell me, what prevents larger competitors from jumping on this opportunity the moment they see its potential? He paused, searching for a way to elevate his argument further. Innovation typically spawns from risk-taking, but we can emphasize a unique value proposition. Our cleaner isn't just about eco-friendliness, it should come with a suite of services focused on education, helping clients not only understand the product but also the broader impacts of sustainability. We turn a generic solution into a comprehensive package that distinguishes us. The room shifted again, his confidence shifting the atmosphere, sparking concepts within each member's mind. He could almost hear their internal dialogue sparking. Could this be their moment? Could they trust the man who once swept floors to illuminate their path forward? Yet, doubt lingered in Jeremy's steely gaze. The execution is one factor, but let us be real. Overcoming established protocols and skepticism from clients isn't as simple as laying out a roadmap. How will you ensure the resources needed for this scale? Dave felt the pulse of challenge pulsate in his chest. It sharpened his focus, intensifying the urgency brimming beneath, revealing hidden competencies he had barely recognized himself. By leveraging existing relationships and allocating our current resources effectively, he countered. We could utilize teams in R&D and marketing, enabling us to streamline efforts toward this project. My first-hand experience with the product's operations also equips me with the insights necessary to predict challenges and efficiencies we'll encounter. He caught Maya's eye, hoping to convey sincerity and ambition intertwined. This was no longer about him simply pushing forward, it was about forging a new identity not just for himself, but for the company as a whole. I believe we have an incredible opportunity on our hands, he added, summoning the last vestiges of courage within him. The time is now to innovate before being forced to react. Silence enveloped the room, pregnant with possibilities and unanswered questions. Would they embrace Dave's radical approach or dismiss it as wishful thinking? As the tension escalated, uncertainty darkened the air like a storm cloud waiting to burst. Maya's gaze sharpened once more. And what if they resist? If the infrastructure fails us? Suddenly, those questions felt like thorns wrapped around his resolve. How would he face the unexpected backlash? And more importantly, how would he adjust his strategy in a moment of potential failure? As each moment stretched, he felt the stark dichotomy of vulnerability and ambition pulse at the forefront of his mind. This wasn't merely an effort to lock in his career, this was a reckoning, a chance to finally prove that change often rises from the most unlikely places. In that moment, Dave realized that the coming decisions would demand far more than just a clever plan, they would require an unwavering commitment, facing potential failure, and strategizing amidst chaos. And the time had come to face what lay ahead. Was he ready to take that leap, or would fear still hold him back? Dave stood at the edge of a precipice he hadn't anticipated. The board's scrutiny felt like a spotlight, bearing his vulnerabilities in stark relief against his aspirations. He had poured his soul into this proposal, believing it might catalyze a transformation not just for the company, but for himself. Yet, at this moment, doubt gnawed at him, threatening to unravel his resolve. "Let me ask you this, Jeremy," he said, heart racing yet firm. "What if we embrace the resistance rather than fear it? What if, instead of seeing our client's skepticism as a barrier, we view it as an opportunity to educate and engage?" The quiet murmur of board members shifted, the air charged with uncertainty. Perhaps this pivot opened a new avenue, but it also felt like a gamble. His instinct was to pull back in caution against recklessness, a refrain echoing from years of habit. Risk had never been part of his language until now. "We implement a feedback loop," he suggested, his voice steady, "a structured channel that allows us to receive and address client concerns in real time. This could further deepen our relationships and ensure that we're not merely selling a product, but fostering a partnership based on trust." A flicker of interest ignited in Maya's eyes. "How do you envision operationalizing that, particularly when clients are resistant?" Her question rang like a bell, drawing the focus of the room. In his mind, Dave began to dissect the layers of the client experience. "We can develop workshops that offer tangible demonstrations of the product's efficacy, tying its benefits directly to their values and long-term goals. We draw them into the process instead of pushing them from the sidelines." This was not merely about growth, it was about consciousness, a transformation that could ripple through the company culture itself. But uncertainty was lurking, ready to sabotage not just the idea, but himself. As he articulated these strategies, each solution felt like a brick fortified against the looming doubt. Still, the looming question of backlash lingered, hovering over him like a gathering storm cloud. What if they pushed back harder than he anticipated? "I can't pretend this path will be smooth," he admitted. "Resistance will come, undoubtedly. But every setback is a lesson, every critique a road sign. We need to be steadfast in our mission, willing to adapt as we learn." The room fell silent once more, and he could feel the tension cut through him. This wasn't just a pitch anymore, it was a personal journey, one that demanded he lean into discomfort. He had spent years cleaning up messes, but now, he was set to clean up corporate neglect, a task infinitely more daunting yet equally rewarding. "I understand the risks," he stated, glancing around the table, making eye contact to convey sincerity. "But if we falter, it's my responsibility to reassess. I will put myself on the line to prove that this approach yields results." From the corner of the room, Jeremy leaned back, his skeptical demeanor shifting slightly. Perhaps a hint of curiosity edged his expression. Maybe it was the cumulative effort in Dave's words or the undeniable passion sparking through them. Whatever it was, it felt like the makings of a breakthrough. Yet, as the moment stretched, the nagging voice of self-doubt returned, orchestrating a silent debate in his mind. Was he ready to lead, to venture beyond the predictable confines of his past? Commitment to this vision also requires building a robust support system among our teams, he pressed on, pulling thoughts together. Every member must understand their role in this journey, cultivating a sense of ownership that transcends traditional hierarchies. With each assertion, he recognized an emerging strength within himself. This was not the man who used to hide behind cleaning supplies and mops, he was growing into an architect of change. The evolving structure of this company was something he dared to believe in now. But as he reached the climax of his discourse, the shadow of fear loomed larger. Will they fully embrace him, or would they remain chained to a status quo that stifled their true potential? It was becoming glaringly evident that this commitment to challenging norms could define who he was as a leader. Every word that passed his lips carried with it the weight of his past, the urgency of his present, and the uncertainty of his future. And with that realization, he steeled himself for what came next. Would they transform their thinking and their approach, or would they revert back to safety, choking on their own inertia? Given the trajectory of these discussions, he concluded, the question remains not just about our design, but whether we have the courage to embody the change we wish to see. The board members exchanged glances, a new tension bubbling beneath the surface. Dave braced himself. He could feel the moment of truth approaching. Will they rally behind him, or would the echoes of doubt drown out his voice entirely? As the atmosphere thickened with anticipation, he knew that the next steps would redefine everything, for him and for them. Only the unfolding decision would reveal the true potential they could reach together. What awaited him on the other side of this pivotal moment? The board members exchanged furtive glances, a ripple of recognition sparking amid their discussions. Observing the unfolding dynamics, Dave sensed the moment teetering on the brink of transformation, not just for the company but for himself. The room hummed with energy, each member weighing their options, and Dave was at the center of it all, the janitor turned innovator daring to redefine what was possible. In that charged silence, Maya finally spoke, her voice steady and clear. Dave, your passion and vision are palpable. I believe there's merit in your proposal. It's not just about the cleaner, it's about redefining our identity as a company that leads rather than follows. Those words cascaded over him like a wave, each syllable washing away the lingering doubt that had threatened to drown him. It was affirmation, a shift from skepticism to recognition. Dave felt anchored, rooting deeper into the conviction that had blossomed within him during this journey. The head of the board, nodding, slowly added, "Let's discuss further how we can pilot your cleaner, integrating your feedback loop. But I must emphasize this requires a leap of faith from our teams and our clients. Are you prepared to handle the resistance?" The weight behind his question was undeniable, echoing the fears Dave had wrestled with for so long. Yet, he felt no hesitation. Absolutely. Resistance isn't a roadblock, it's a conversation starter. I'm ready to engage and educate. We'll build a community around this product, one that resonates with our clients' values and adapts to their needs. The executives murmured agreement, the room filled with burgeoning excitement about the path ahead. Dave envisioned those workshops and pilot programs. He could almost see the potential impact they'd have, extending beyond mere sales. This was about catalyzing a shift in the corporate culture itself, empowering his colleagues and clients to take ownership of their roles in this ecological landscape. As discussions unfolded, each question propelled him forward. The passion he had once tucked away found its way into his voice, no longer burdened by apprehension. Instead of clinging to his past, he exuded the energy of someone ready to stake a claim in his narrative, a journey where dreams were no longer shackled to the titles assigned. He was not just a janitor, he was a transformative leader. Amidst the back-and-forth exchanges, Jeremy interjected one final time, "You still haven't convinced me this will work. What's to stop our competitors from undercutting us?" Dave met his gaze, channeling the confidence that had surged within him. "They might try, but we're not just introducing a product, we're crafting a vision. Our commitment to sustainability and client engagement places us ahead of the curve. That's our unique value proposition. We're not just selling a cleaner, we're selling a movement toward integrity in our industry." The room seemed to hold its breath, and as silence followed, Dave realized he had crossed an invisible line. He was no longer pleading for recognition, he was demanding respect based on his newfound assurance. The executives nodded, some openly impressed, as they began to envision the ramifications of this approach nourished by potential and authenticity. Finally, Maya leaned back, her expression thoughtful. "All right then, let's pilot this. I want to see the performance metrics, the feedback structure, and the client engagement you're proposing. If you can measure success, you'll have proven that being a janitor means far more than people realize." It was a pivotal moment. Dave felt the reality of those words sink in. He was being propelled forward by the very executives who had once overlooked him. There was a growing momentum pulsing in the room, a palpable intimacy forming around shared purpose. The transformation was no longer just his but collective. Together, they were moving toward a future of possibility. As the meeting wrapped up, he caught Jeremy's eye, and something shifted. Instead of a challenge, he saw acknowledgement. It would take time, but perhaps Jeremy would learn to appreciate the very qualities he had doubted: ingenuity, resilience, and a willingness to step beyond boundaries. Walking out of the conference room, Dave felt an exhilarating pulse of satisfaction coursing through him. He hadn't just defended a cleaner, he hadn't merely proposed a solution. He had transformed himself, cementing his identity as an innovator and an integral part of building this company's future. The fear of falling back into obscurity receded, replaced by a resolute understanding of his capabilities. In the aftermath, the world he returned to felt layers deeper. The recognition among his colleagues had shifted, and he sensed a profound respect that transcended his title as a janitor. Each interaction filled with a new energy, evidence that he had not only achieved recognition, he had changed the fabric of how they all viewed roles within the organization. Hours later, after celebrating with supportive colleagues, he returned home, a sense of fulfillment enveloping him. That night, he reflected on the journey. He could see now that each hardship had carved the contours of his identity. The night spent worrying had transformed into a pathway leading to this moment of truth. He had stepped into uncharted territory, confronting adversity and transforming limitations into opportunities. Not only had he accomplished the recognition that had eluded him, but he had etched his name into the company's framework as a catalyst for change. Tomorrow, he would delve deeper into crafting the outreach plan for his cleaner, but tonight, he savored the victory, the realization of his personal achievements, a testament to the journey from a janitor's dream to an architect of innovation. And just like that, Dave had not only transformed a concept, he had reshaped his identity, boldly stepping out of the shadows and into the light, forever altering the course of his life. This is the moment when true fans of personal overcoming stories step up. You need to subscribe now to our channel, ensuring you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that illuminate lives. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and amplify these powerful narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about this conclusion, engaging in the conversation that matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this triumphant transformation and find their own strength. Don't wait even one more second. Embrace the journey toward growth and empowerment with us.